Today we have one of the thought leaders, Dr. Sumit Datta Chowdhury. I welcome you, sir, for this webinar, and I would request the MC Pragya to take over from here.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Science of thinking and art of living resolve all conflicts of life by introducing harmony in the brain-body system that results in unconditional brain from conditioned brain. Today, to help us widen our knowledge, we have our guest, Dr. Sumit D. Chaudhary. Dr. Sumit D. Chaudhary is the founder CEO of Sesovera and founder chairman of Gaia Smart Cities. He's a global thought leader and CXO in the field of artificial intelligence, smart cities, telecom, and information analytics. His prior roles include being a president of Reliance Jio, VP of IBM, CIO of Reliance Communications, and managing partner of KPMG. He was the program director of Swachh Bharat Mission and IT expert for several smart city projects. He is an advisor for Broadcast Audience Research Council and also the consulting CTO of Brookfield Properties in India. He is a graduate of IIT Kanpur, followed by MS and PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. He has a certificate diploma from Australian Institute of Company Directors. He is an author of the best-selling career management book, Rules of the Game, published by Bloomsbury, India, that empowers readers to enhance productivity and fast-track their careers. He is represented by the Outstanding Speakers Bureau and speaks in different forums on technology, career, and management ideas. He is also a speaker on the TEDx platform. He is an avid painter, trained musician, marathon runner, and a cyclist. Sumit sir, it's my immense pleasure to welcome you to our GRD CEO Word Series.
Thank you so much, Pragya, and thank you, KKR. It's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you today. So, what am I talking today? We are talking about thinking like Da Vinci. Now, this talk I have been preparing over this period of pandemic for the last 6 months. I've been reading about Da Vinci, and I've been reading about the book for a long time, for decades maybe. And I have done a lot of research myself. I have tried to understand and go into the head of the person, his life, his background, what he did, why did he do what he did. And I have been trying to resonate with a couple of books that I read. And this particular talk is inspired by a book called Think Like Da Vinci by Michael Klebb. If you get a chance, do pick up the book, read it. I'll give you a summary. So today's talk is the summary of that book. It essentially will talk to you about whole brain thinking. And whole brain thinking is about taking a holistic view of the world, bringing all your faculties together to analyze the situation. And at the end of today's talk, I hope you learn how to develop curiosity and entrepreneurship and an appreciation for finer details in life, bringing art and science together, and finally start making connections between things, between why you are here, why you should be somewhere else, or what are you doing and why are you doing what you're doing. So I'll tell you a little bit. I think Pragya mentioned a little bit about myself, and I have a little a diagram that explains what I have done in life and sort of brings together everything. So I did my undergrad in electronics and communications and masters, did a further graduate masters and a PhD in public policy and information technology. That's sort of put a holistic view of technology and management together. And then I also, coming from my background in art and design, I have done many years of training as an artist, and then became a technical drawing guy. Started thinking about design into everything, and wanted to do urban architecture. Unfortunately, though I did get into an architecture school, I ended up in IIT Kanpur. But I have kept my design and my art together with me throughout this thing. And subsequently, I joined KPMG. After my PhD, I joined KPMG and did a lot of work in the telecommunications industry in the US, in Australia, and finally I became a partner of KPMG. I was one of their youngest partner, and I became a partner at 32, and I finally became the CEO of our operations in Australia in 2005. I then joined Reliance Communications, and then finally I became the CIO of Reliance Jio also. And most of the time I was working with very complex systems, mission critical IT infrastructure, working with city and citywide, nationwide systems and processes. So sort of brought together everything. And then when I quit and I joined and started my own company, that's where we started Gaia. And the origin of Gaia is essentially a culmination of all my effort, right from the time I did electronics to management to design, art, telecom. Everything came together. Somehow the universe collided to bring all of these aspects together. And subsequent to my starting Gaia 5 years ago, I have been associated with, I've had many ideas to start different companies. At different parts of my career, I have either started or spawned off companies. Wherever you see the light, I've actually done a startup. So when people talk about me transitioning from a full-blown career in big corporations in the world to a startup, it was not sudden. It was planned through multiple years of desire to do it, actually. Today I have got a few different brands, and some of it might be obvious and some not. So I obviously run this AI and IoT solutions company, Gaia, that I founded. From there, we spun off a company called Senses9, which is into healthcare task automation. We work with a lot of hospitals, looking at how to make the hospitals a lot more efficient. We use IoT from my previous company, but we also use a lot of artificial intelligence to automate work. And this optimization algorithms are essentially created through this Census 9. We also spun off another company called Sesovera. It's a US-based company which is doing voice recognition on the edge. So essentially, you will be able to speak into any device, any gadget, any bus, any microwave, and it will understand what you're saying without requiring the internet. So that's my third company, Sesovera. And over the last 7 months since the lockdown started, my daughter and I have started an artisanal bakery, and we work from home. And we are quite a successful father-daughter artisanal baker in South Mumbai. We supply to quite a elite group of customers, and these are the brands that I work with, and I do that from 4 in the morning to about 9 in the morning, and then my regular day starts with the other companies. So that's what my life is today. um, I keep myself busy 16, 17, 18 hours a day, and do, as you can see, a whole lot of things come in. So it's important to understand the background based on what I'm going to say next and all the other slides, and you will see my own personal biases come into um, the discussion about Leonardo da Vinci. Now, people have done a lot of studies about who is the greatest genius of all times, right? Over time and time again, 10 times, 15 times, people have done this analysis across the entire world. And every time at the end of this study, globally, the topmost genius of all times has been rated as Leonardo da Vinci. Now, why is that? We will talk a little bit about that, and it's it's amazing how in 14 end of the 1400 or 15th century, you had somebody who had devised so many gadgets, devices in so many different areas of study. Each of them, if there was a Nobel Prize given at that time, he would have got 40 to 50 Nobel Prizes at that time, if Nobel Prizes were given in 1500 AD. Uh, it was amazing the kinds of things that he has done, and it is a structured way of thinking, and that is what we are going to talk about today. It is not that he did it and nobody else can do it. What we are going to talk about is his everyday way of thinking that allowed him to be one of the topmost geniuses of all times, right? So he was a painter and a sculptor and an architect. Did bridges, did painting, and some of his very, very famous paintings that you know is as from Mona Lisa to The Last Supper to many, many paintings that you would have seen across. He was a visionary. He was a polymath. He was an inventor. He understood and explained everything very, very scientifically. Science, music. He's a musician and understood mathematics quite lucidly. Engineering, literature, anatomy. He dissected human body many, many times to understand where different parts are and how to put it all together. He understood geology, astronomy, botany, paleontology, and cartography. So it did maps. Is the first time somebody did a map, and standing inside with today we can go up on the city and see how the city looks like, but he could visualize the city standing on the ground, and that was amazing given where he was from. He was born on April 15th in 1452 in Italy, and he died on May 2nd in France. He was an illegitimate child. If he was a legitimate child, his father would have made him an accountant. Nothing against accountants, but because he was illegitimate, he did not have to follow his father's career. He had the choice to do whatever he wanted, and that actually gave him the freedom to explore his own curiosity. He was unschooled. He was an apprentice to various older sculptors and architects. He was ambidextrous. He could use both his hands quite extensively. And he also went and spent time with singers and musicians, and that was a little bit of his history that was there. Some of his paintings, many would have come across these paintings before, as the famous ones are known, but there's plenty of not so famous ones that have been there in various museums and in walls, on chapels all over in tapestries. Many of his famous inventions have been documented. He used to draw extensively about the anatomy. How does the bone structures work between a human being, a giraffe, or the foot, and sort of come across various physical shapes that he has created. He worked on a lot on war machines. In fact, he was sponsored by the king because he actually told the king that he will be able to create gadgets which will make the king win wars. And he was actually sponsored by the king to do a lot of this work. He understood how solar eclipse work, how lunar eclipse work. He understood how rivers flow. He drew the picture of the estuaries and rivers as they flew through the cities. And so, as you can see, a lot of what he has done has made it into real products. I mean, he created an underwater breathing apparatus, a life preserver, a diving bell, pile drivers. He actually designed the entire water sewage system of Rome. So essentially, you can see the amount of understanding he had about flow of water, and he drew the flow of water throughout the thing. He actually designed an armored car, a revolving crane, parachute, pulleys. I mean, there's so many drawings in his book, and many people actually did not know how to read his book. And if anybody can tell me why they couldn't read his book, that'll be most interesting. Actually, I won't ask the question now. I'll tell you the answer. Actually, people could not read his book because it was written in left hand and could be read only through a mirror. So if somebody could place a mirror next to the book, only then they would have been able to read the book. And many people didn't know that was the case. So his books got deciphered and reread and reinterpreted over the last couple of hundred years. In fact, the person who owns all his books and has actually created a whole digital archive of Da Vinci's book is Bill Gates. He owns the entire book library of Da Vinci, and you can actually go and see it. You can click on the mirror image, and you can see how the book looked and how it looks now, how it will look when read through the mirror. Um, so why are we here today? Can you become like Da Vinci? All of you will think that, look, he's just too good, I can't become him or come anywhere close to him. But that's not the case. Uh, a fundamental approach was there to learning and the cultivation of intelligence. And you're here in the college. You've got fantastic teachers, you've got a great administrator and leader sitting over there. But all of everybody's trying to tell you how to cultivate intelligence, right? And that is what this talk is about, is how do you cultivate? Can you abstract? Can you apply it in your day-to-day life? um, can Da Vinci inspire you from doing things? Can he guide you? And can it realize, can the techniques help you realize your own potential, right? um, your brain is actually much better than what you think. It is designed to do marvelous things, and we only use a fraction of our brains. So if you go through the 7 principles that I'm going to talk about, you're going to start applying these principles, the 7 principles of Da Vinci. How do you imbibe them, and what is systems thinking and whole brain thinking? I'll drop these words in front of you. Go read up about them, Google these things later, and if you can read up about this book as well, right? So the 3 words, I mean, there are 7 words, but I'll go through each one of them and talk about them in detail. The first one is Artesianza. The Artesianza is Italian word for bringing art and science together into your thinking. Development of whole brain thinking. You don't look at a problem only in a very, very scientific way. You look at the science and the art also. How is the universe shaping this problem? There's a lot of unstructured thinking that goes into problem solving, and that's what whole brain thinking is all about. The second, I'll talk about it, all of these in detail. The second word that we'll talk about is called Kenesian, which means that everything in this universe is connected to and everything else, right? It's another word that we use in management theory today called systems thinking. It is essentially saying that everything is connected. You know why I'm here today? I can actually trace the reason why I'm sitting here talking to you today to many, many things that have happened in the past, that has led me to connect with Dr. Ramchandran, and then before that, him inviting me to be a TEDx speaker there, and that event itself was triggered by many other events and getting us introduced. So if you start looking at 2 people or 2 incidents, they are always connected to something else. And it is the third word which I want all of you to understand, that do you have the curiosity to find these connections? I can come here and give you a talk. I can give you a talk and go away without having the curiosity to understand that why am I connected to Dr. Ramachandran? Why am I even speaking here? Why did I agree to it with one mail? There is a reason to everything. And many years later, you might sit back and understand why you are here today listening to me. And this connection and your curiosity to find these connections is what is going to make you super intelligent, and it is going to make you see patterns that many of you would not know existed before. Right? The next 4 words are also very, very interesting. The 4th word is called Somato. What are we going through in this last 7 months, 9 months, I would say, of this pandemic? Huge amount of uncertainty, paradox, ambiguity. Da Vinci talked about your ability to deal with ambiguity, to deal with not knowing what is going to come, and be able to be comfortable, peaceful with ambiguity, is what is going to make a difference between what you are today and what the leader that the universe is seeking for. A good CEO, a good leader, is able to operate in uncertainty, is able to operate when there are paradoxical decisions to be made, A or B, and it is never clear. As you go through life, you will realize that many decisions are never very clear. You don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you still need to take a decision. right? So there is a lot of ambiguity of the data that is there, but you still need to take a decision. So the question is, are you comfortable dealing with this uncertainty? And people who are comfortable dealing with this uncertainty are the ones who will succeed. And that is the gist of this word Somato. The next one is demonstration. Demonstration is showing the world what you're doing. There is no point in you doing something and the world not knowing what you are doing. If you don't show what you're doing, nobody will know what you're doing and nobody will appreciate it. And then you will pretty much be an ununderstood genius. For you to be appreciated, you need to go and tell the world, however incomplete your work is, go validate it. In systems design, in companies, we talk about proof of concepts, we talk about pilots, we talk about getting the customer involved in your design process. All kinds of things pretty much point to this one thing: demonstrate first. Go and talk about your ideas, and demonstrate your ideas to the world, and then get the feedback, right? Understand what the world is trying to tell you back. Next one is called sensation. Now sensation is a very interesting word. Develop your senses, develop your ability to feel things, to smell things, to taste different things, to see different things. And somebody who's able to distinguish between the various notes of music, for an untrained ear, you would say that I understand between sa and a re, or a do or a re in music. But a very trained ear, a good musician, can actually find 10 notes between those two notes. They can understand frequency differences of very small intervals. People who are very highly trained as a fighter pilot, or a high speed motor car driver, their reflexes are very, very sharp, because they can break down certain events and certain inputs that they are getting into much smaller sensory perceptions that they've got. And that is what is going to make a difference in how many areas are you able to train your senses to be finer. And the last one is corporality, which is essentially says cultivation of grace, poise, ambidextrity, and fitness. Be fit, because if you are not fit, you'll not be able to operate many things in this world. So be fit, stand tall. And Da Vinci himself was known to be very, very handsome. He used to walk in the street, and people used to look up and look at this beautiful man. By the way, just as an aside, no offense, he was gay, and it was documented. Many of you may not know that, but that has got nothing to do with the achievements he has had in life. So let's talk about each one of these concepts that I talked about. Artesians, right? When you want to develop something, develop the art and logic, um, it's got both left brain and right brain. You must have heard about this left person who is both left brain and right brain, a whole brain thinking person, right? You need to harness both these things. And what are the left brain and right brain functions? A left brain person is somebody who is analytical, who's logical, thinks linearly, has a very realistic perspective about life, and is very objective, systematic. And there are people who are right brained. Many of you, there are 350, 60, 70 people on this call. Many of you are right brained, and many of you are left brained. You're intuitive, you're creative, you think randomly, you have a free flowing thought process, and you're spontaneous. And both sides have made enormous contributions to the world, by the way, right? There is no right or wrong in left and right brain thinking. Both are required. But there are some people who are whole brain thinkers, who can actually bring the left and right together. People who can actually see the link between the left and the right. People who are able to stitch it together. They can see a pattern in completely random artwork and be able to visualize a solution to a totally different problem. If you take a look at how he was drawing the eddy currents of the flow of water, and coming up, understanding how water flows, how water turns, how do you create pipes, How will water flow through the pipes? When will it accelerate? When will it decelerate? How can you actually make the cities um, undulations and build it into the design of the sewerage system? And those are the things that came from his drawing. He was doing deep engineering, but his ideas came from drawing something. So he brought all of these things together. He was able to demonstrate and articulate through drawing what he was thinking. So what was in his head could very easily be articulated. So the people who are able to express their left brain thinking through creative art, through design, through articulation in a very, very interesting way, are the ones who are going to be able to put all of these things together. And some of you will become whole brain thinkers. Now the question is, are you happy to be only left brain or right brain? The people who are whole brain are going to be able to do a lot more. So it's not that either one of them is right or wrong, and both of them have got enormous successful leaders on both sides. But do you want to be whole brain? So this is the difference. It's just not right or wrong. It's just telling you what Artesians means. Artesians as a word means whole brain thinking, people who can bring art and science together. Right. So again, a little bit of showing you what it means. It's the left sides are the goal driven, results driven. The other one is vision driven, creative intelligence, rational intelligence is there, and they're able to stitch things together in a very, very different way. And that's the concept of Artesians. So, I don't know whether you have done courses or whether you work. I don't know the specific place that you're coming from, but people draw these mind maps. People who are whole brain thinkers are able to draw these mind maps in their head about what is going to happen, how it is going to happen, and they are able to then structurally articulate each one of those paths and completely flush it out. So you need to be able to bring this concept. Draw your own mind map one day. Understand your ambitions, your employment, your education, people, what kind of people you meet, your interests, where do you want to travel. All of these things are part of the larger thinking that you have in your head. So draw this out for yourself, right? Next point is Kenesian. As we talked about, everything is connected to everything else, and understanding the big picture. When we work in smart cities, when we work in solving big problems in companies, we are trained to understand how one thing impacts the other. We look at processes and we look at, if we do this thing, what else can go wrong? And we constantly look at the connections between the action of one person and the resulting outcome that might happen in the rest of the system. Now, a system could be as small as your own life. A system could be a group that you work in. A system could be the entire organization that you are part of. So that's what a system is. And are you able to find these connections constantly? Is your mind trained to immediately start looking at connections as soon as you interact with something? What is it looking like? What does it smell like? What does it how did I meet, and why did I meet, and why is this something happening? Are you constantly trying to find these connection between events? Our life is a series of events that happen, and if many of you got a chance to look at the TED talk that I had given at the institute, you would know I talked about the mathematics of the connection of events. I talked about how different events are connected to each other, and you are able to draw the mathematics between them, and you're able to plot what are the different possibilities of outcomes, which kinds of events will collide and create opportunity for all of you. So essentially, it was a mathematical representation of this concept of connection. Right? So if you can start visualizing your life as a series of events, you should start looking at why one event is connected to the other event. And that's a training that you can start doing, start today. Start looking at why you are here. Start looking at why you were there when the previous event and the previous event, and you can go all the way back to when you were born and set of things that you remember. And if you want to go even further behind, you can go talk to your parents and their parents and look at other events that led to your being where you are today, right? Examples: what is the connection between the bullfrog and the internet? What is the connection between the oak tree and your hand? What is the connection between a giraffe and cold straw? Take two random things in your life and start finding events, and that is how you can train yourself. Start finding the connections between these things, and you will find that at some point in time you're going to find things that actually connect these silly things together. Today it is a silly thing, but tomorrow it could be why a problem exists and what is the solution for that problem, right? And go to extremes to find these connections. Break down the barriers and the walls that you have created in your mind to find these connections. Right. The next one is curiosity. Have the curiosity to find this. Curiosity for continuous learning. Now, should never stop learning. And this concept is very easy for me to say, but I actually try to do this day in and day out. I will give you a couple of examples. I had a challenge with my daughter to learn Spanish. We decided, I told her some silly word before her exam and she didn't do well. So she came and blamed me for spoiling her exam. So I said, okay, fine, I'll also learn Spanish. You also learn Spanish, and we'll have a competition at the end of the year. And in a year, every day for more than 350 days, I have practiced Spanish, and for half an hour every day, not a single day's break, and have now become quite fluent in understanding and speaking the language. I'm 50, and you can never say that it is too late to learn something. And I started conversing with my daughter in Spanish, and she got an A in her exams. And that was pretty much what my objective was, is how do I help by taking that step? Do I have the curiosity? I learned baking. I didn't have any idea what baking was or bread baking was. And now, if you go to my site of the dough and batter and see what kind of work I do, you will realize how within 6 months, the kinds of things that we have been able to do, the kinds of comments that we have got, the kinds of recognition that we are getting for doing the kind of work we are doing. And it is absolutely learned in the last 6, 7, 9 months. So it is the curiosity to understand why things are happening. Do you have the skills? Ask the next 3 steps. Why did something happen? Keep asking the question why till you hit a roadblock and you don't have an answer. Be very, very persistent with your questioning of why things are happening. Try to find on your own time. You don't have to burden the world with your curiosity. Do you have the tenacity to do it yourself without requiring the whole world to be at your knees trying to help you understand something? The world will help you, but you need to have the curiosity to say, I need to know, I need to learn, right? Great minds ask great questions. Understand that. So if you don't know how to ask questions, start today. Ask me some good, interesting questions at the end of this session today, and we'll know whether you got this one right. Keep a journal, a notebook of things that you like or you don't like. Try to understand why you like it, why you don't like it. Jot down the events. Understand the linkages between events. Da Vinci took copious notes and always had a journal entry for the kinds of things that he was working on, even if they were incomplete, even if they had if he was not fully ready with the idea, he would write it down, he would draw it out, he would sketch it, and go take a look at these on the web. You will find these journal entries in his book, and people have been able to stitch together many of his thoughts and ideas through these journal entries that he used to keep. And he would connect these things. He would draw these mind maps, and we are talking about 1500s, right? People are doing it. Mind maps and softwares are there to draw mind maps today, but he was doing it in 1500s, drawing mind maps between animals and astrology. and astronomy, sorry. He was being able to visualize things that people couldn't think about, because he was drawing these mind maps, right? Use these questions to guide your thought, and solve problems. um, Work on a theme every day. There are some of those things that you can do today. Work on a theme that today I'm going to work on solving this problem, and then be at it till you fall and solve that problem. You will feel much better at the end of the day if you do that, right? Go into contemplation. People talk about contemplation and meditation and other things. Think a lot. Think when you are not doing anything. Think when you are brain dead, watching something, cooking, going in a bus or going in a train. Use your mind to contemplate what is going on and the linkages, and look at the link, and form these mind maps in your head. And the other thing that many psychologists do today, or many even HR professionals use this quite constantly, it is called the stream of consciousness writing. Just write what comes to your mind for 10 minutes every day. The stream of consciousness writing will clear up your mind. And what are you thinking? And start writing these down. Do not stop to censor anything. Just write it down. You can cut it out later, but just after a few days, come back and see how things are falling into place. And this continuous learning will develop your curiosity in life. Right. Next word we talked about was demonstration. And test your knowledge through practical experience. Don't just become a theoretical person who's just reading books and just talking about some things. Go and do it. Create something, draw something, go give a talk. I started working on this talk and have given it a few times now, trying to just demonstrate my understanding and my belief in this matter. And I do this so that I get better at it. Every time I give this talk, I'm a little better than I gave it the previous time. And I hope I'm able to do that today as well. Right. And when you do that, you get good feedback from the universe, and you're willing to learn from your mistakes. A lot of people don't do things because they think that it is a mistake. Go ahead and make mistakes. The people who don't make mistakes are the ones who are not trying out enough things in life. So make mistakes, go out and learn from those mistakes. And first-hand experience is the best way you can learn anything. And I can tell you something from my last 7 months of baking is, I bake, I send it to people, I get feedback. If it is good, if it is bad, I understand why it was bad. I try to figure out what I did wrong. And because I have got notes about what I did, I know what I did could make it better, or what I did was made it worse. So essentially, I'm being able to look at an outcome and constantly train myself. And that is what deep learning is all about today. When computers are training in neural networks and artificial intelligence, it is essentially feeding an outcome and giving it the feedback, and training the system to be becoming perfect. So by demonstration, you're getting that feedback and to become perfect. Right? And he was constantly exploring and experimenting with human bodies, animal corpses, to learn anatomy, to learn new innovations and automations. Um, he challenged his own beliefs. Many of us don't do that. We don't challenge our own beliefs. We stick to our beliefs for too long. First thing is, don't stick to your beliefs for too long. The world changes way too fast, and you'll be able to actually do a lot more if you challenge your beliefs, change your preconceptions and knowledge. With knowledge will come your ability to do this. Constantly examining the facts, and if facts change your thought. Scrutinizing his paintings against a mirror, he would put his painting against a mirror and see if it made sense, because in the universe it will always make sense, but in a painting you realize your flaws when you look at it against a mirror. You will you will see the lines are not straight. You will see that your trees are not looking like trees when you start looking at things in a different perspective. Go back. He used to walk back to a distance to watch his own paintings, and that gave a different perspective. So are you watching yourself from a different perspective? I have learned public speaking quite actively, and one of the things that they tell us in public speaking is to visualize yourself in front of an audience and see and get that feedback back again. And that's what we used to always do, right? examine your experiences, analyze your beliefs, explore different viewpoints, keep your mind open, build a mental self-defense, and not get swayed by perception and preconceived notions, right? Learn from mistakes and adversity, and create positive affirmations that I am going to do this. Create a positive viewpoint as to what you're going to do at the end of the day, end of the month, and go for this positive. The next one is sensation. Sensation I talked about is constantly sharpening your senses. Understand different kinds of things. Touch your paper and try to see the different kinds of paper. Taste different things, and when you're eating, do you think about the taste, or you just eat and you go away? You have not applied your mind to that experience that you just had. Somebody has put a lot of effort to prepare a meal for you. Do you appreciate that? And you will, once you start appreciating it, you will see the subtle differences between salt and sugar, and the different kinds of tastes that are there. And once you start doing it for food, you will start doing it for paintings. You're going to start doing it in your own work. You're going to start seeing the subtle difference between the good and the bad. If you're a journalist, you will see the difference between good journalism and bad journalism, because you're constantly sharpening your senses around the work that you do. So our five senses are sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. These are the primary senses. There are four more senses, which are combination senses, like acceleration, like your gravity, like your presence. Those are senses that are there, and they can be measured and they can be thing, but they are not called the primary senses. So five primary senses, work on them. Work on them by putting your mind to it. If you're listening, if you're out listening to sounds in the morning, you're out in a morning walk, don't aimlessly give a morning walk. Sharpen your ears and look at the sounds or the smells of the flowers. Those are the things that will help you improve your senses. Don't feel bad about anything. All your senses are trying to tell you. I mean, it's a bad smell is also a sense. And if you always walk away from something that is bad, you will never develop an appreciation for what is good and what is bad. Right? Somato is something that we are all going through right now. The ability to deal with ambiguity. And the word spumato essentially said that the world just went up in smoke. And literally in the pandemic, I think the world just went up in smoke. Right? The skill of dealing with this ambiguity. Right? If you deal with the first three things, sorry about the incomplete sentence there, but you need to develop this high tolerance to ambiguity. You won't know what is going to happen, but you still need to do it. So this whole concept of spumato is a word that intrigued me. In fact, my first presentation that I did on this book was called Spumato, because it was given to a bunch of CIOs, and I was telling them how to deal with the ambiguity of this pandemic, how to be comfortable with the kind of things that are happening, right? And not be flustered and fearful, right? And the last one is corporality, is about the poise, the balance between body and mind, right? Nurture this skill. If you're not a runner, if you're not out there, keep your body fit in some way. It's okay. I was a couch potato for a long period of time, and then I started running marathons. I do cycling. I do a lot of things just to keep this particular thing in mind. Even if I'm not doing anything out there, I am constantly walking, and I'm never staying in one place, so that the body is fit, right? Or exercise regularly, right? Even in his deathbed, in his last days, and when his deathbed, he apologized to the person who came to him, saying God and man. He apologized for leaving God and man for so much undone, right? He's saying that there is so much to do in this world, and I have not done it all, and need to be. And he had written this thing, think well to the end. He was always thinking to the end goal. I know so many people who work for me in the companies that I've worked for. I've been a CEO and a CXO, CIO. I had very, very large teams. But one thing that I know, that the people who have always been successful are the ones who have visualized and articulated the end that they are trying to to reach. I'm going to finish this work today, and here is what you're going to get. Once you articulate that, you'll be able to get to that point. There is a lot of people who are not able to articulate the end. They don't think well to the thing. They don't consider what is the end. And therefore, they keep on taking one step or the other, which is not bad, but you will not find an outcome. And for you to be successful, you need to find as many outcomes as you can in your lifetime and in the time frame that you've got. So I'm just going to review it, all his 7 points again, so that you can take back something today. And I want all of you to go to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to whatever channel that you see, and tweet about this talk today. Talk about 1 or 2 or 3 of these items that I'm talking about, and tell me a little bit about what you are thinking and which one piqued your interest, curiosity. Am I asking the right question? That's what you should take back from today is, am I asking the right question? Second one is demonstration. How can I show what I'm doing and learn from mistakes? Sensation. What is my plan to sharpen my senses as I encounter the world? Somato. How can I strengthen my ability to hold a creative tension? Creative tension is all about managing people with all kinds of ambiguity, right? So how do you embrace paradox and live with uncertainty? Artesians. Are you balancing art and science in your life? Are you thinking outside the box? Are you bringing your left and right brain together? Corporality is about, are you staying fit? And the last one is, all of these above things, how do they fit together? Do you understand how these above things are connected to each other? So I'm going to leave the session today with this slide.